Hey guys, this is Vadim and welcome to AppleInsider. The S9 Plus is Samsung's second flagship device to feature dual cameras. The telephoto lens is pretty much identical to the one on the Note 8, but the wide-angle lens on both the S9 and the S9 Plus features something we've never seen before in a smartphone. A dual aperture system that works by automatically switching between two f-stop modes to adapt to different lighting conditions. The f1.5 aperture mode lets in more light for cleaner low-light images, and the f2.4 mode results in sharper photos. The S9 and S9 Plus will automatically choose the right aperture unless you're in Pro mode. The iPhone X's wide-angle lens sports an f1.8 aperture, which is in between the two choices on the S9. The telephoto lenses on both phones are extremely similar, and all of the rear lenses include optical image stabilization. The selfie camera on the Samsung lets in more light and has higher resolution than the 7-megapixel f2.2 front-facing shooter on the iPhone. Last year, we compared the iPhone X's camera to the Note 8's, and that video is well on its way to reaching 1 million views. You can check it out by clicking the card above, but now it's time to see if Samsung stepped up their game with the S9 Plus. Starting with a telephoto image with portrait and live focus modes enabled, the background in the Samsung image is noticeably more blurry than that of the 10. It also looks more saturated, but the 10's photo definitely looks more accurate in terms of color reproduction. The S9 Plus has more detail as well. Now with the wide-angle lens, the S9 Plus exposed very well in auto mode, while the 10 was a bit too dark. Even though the S9 Plus exposed brighter, it crushes the detail in dark areas like the hair. Both phones look extremely similar in terms of detail. We manually chose the f2.4 aperture mode on the Samsung, and for some reason, Pro mode would underexpose the image every single time. We saw the same result in f1.5 mode as well, including some loss of detail and sharpness. We adjusted the exposure compensation setting to get the S9 Plus to expose brighter, but we noticed that the clouds were blown out. We went into the settings and discovered that HDR doesn't work in Pro mode, so don't use it if you're taking photos against a bright background. Here, we used the telephoto lenses and noticed the 10 had more contrast. The S9 Plus looked more true to what we saw in real life. The detail between the two is extremely similar. Switching to the wide lenses, the 10 has more saturation, as you can tell by the blue signs. Switching the Samsung to f1.5 mode, we can tell that the background gets slightly blurrier, but we also lose detail in the tree. So if you're in good lighting, don't use the f1.5 mode. Moving on to a selfie using portrait and focus modes, the S9 Plus's lens is so wide that it seems to distort the body, making his head look small. The 10 blurs the foreground and the background, which is the effect you get with a professional camera at a fast aperture. The Samsung, however, only blurs the background. Detail looks very similar, but the S9 Plus doesn't blur as much of the hair, which looks much better. Here, the 10 exposes darker, and the shadows under the eyes make it look worse. However, the Samsung completely blows out the clouds. Now switching to portrait and live focus modes, we notice that the S9 Plus has a stronger blur effect. We can also see that the 10 struggles to keep the blur amount consistent near the ear. The S9 Plus also has a wide selfie mode, which works like panorama mode, but it does have some issues patching the images together. The Samsung does a better job at maintaining highlight details outside compared to the 10, which also seem to push the white balance a bit too warm. The Samsung has more detail as well. For low light, we started the Samsung off with f2.4 aperture mode. We noticed that the 10 was more color accurate. The S9 Plus definitely had more noise in this mode, but it seemed to have more detail than the 10. Switching to f1.5 mode dramatically reduced the noise, but it lost detail as well. Either way, the 10 still had less detail. We noticed a pretty big issue. The Samsung actually dropped the shutter speed to an extremely low 1/8 of a second in both modes in order to preserve detail. This will undoubtedly cause motion blur if the subject moves at all. We manually raised the shutter speed to 1/30th of a second to help with this issue, but it also forced the ISO setting into manual, which was pretty annoying. We kept the settings in manual to test how much more light comes into the camera sensor with each mode. As you can see, f1.5 mode should really help with low light photos. Switching to the telephoto lenses, the S9 Plus did way better in pretty much every single way. We can really see a huge difference in detail. Testing portrait and live focus modes, the iPhone automatically used flash, whereas the Samsung didn't, and it totally ruined the photo. Taking a selfie in auto mode, the S9 Plus turned its shutter speed down so low that it came out blurry. The 10 chose to keep its shutter speed high, which made the image darker, but at least it wasn't blurry. Using flash, the Samsung's image was no longer blurry, but the face was distractingly bright compared to the background. The 10 did a good job of balancing the brightness, but it was still a bit underexposed. Now using the rear cameras and flash, the S9 Plus has much more detail, but you still get that distracting flash effect. Finally, we switched over to the telephoto lenses, and although the S9 Plus looks sharper, it appeared over-sharpened due to the bright flash effect. The 10 looks much more pleasant and balanced, despite the loss in detail. Both flagship devices have extremely good cameras, and they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. We'll leave it up to you to look over the photos and decide which camera is superior. Let us know what you thought about this comparison in the comment section below. We'll have more comparisons between the iPhone X and Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus soon, so make sure to subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss them.
If you enjoyed this video, like it and hit that subscribe button. Also, check out our price guide, which makes it extremely easy to find the best deals on Apple products, updated daily. Be sure to follow us on social media, and we'll see you in the next video.